Hi everyone, I'm Lily. I'm 8. Today I'm going to read a story. The title of this story is The Shepherd and the Fairy. Once upon a time, there lived in a deep dark cave, there lived a beautiful fairy. She was a clever fairy who could do all kinds of magic, but she could do magic on the condition that she did not leave the cave. For more than 3 days at a time, the cave was in a faraway place in the mountain. Because of this, she was very lonely. The fairy liked to go for walks in the hill and feel the fresh air. She also liked to smell the wild flower. She enjoyed watching the birds fly. She could fly too, but not as gracefully as a sparrow or a hummingbird. One day when the fairy was out walking, she saw a young shepherd herding his sheep. He was quite plain, but he played a wooden flute and seemed quite merry. She watched him for a while. His joy made her heart sing. She fell in love with him. "Hello, shepherd," she said. "You look so happy. I really enjoyed your music." The shepherd stopped playing his flute and smiled at her. "Yeah, ma'am, I'm very happy." The shepherd felt a little shy. "You're quite content?" the fairy asked. "You don't need anything at all?" "Not a thing," the shepherd replied. "You're sure?" asked the fairy. The shepherd thought for a moment. Was there anything he needed in his life? He had his sheep, he had his music. After a few moments, he said, "Well, I have everything I need, except for a wife," he smiled. He felt a little embarrassed, "but I'm much too poor to think of marriage." The fairy looked away and twisted her hair with her finger. "What will I do for a wife?" she asked. The shepherd was so startled, and he almost dropped his flute. "Will you do?" he gasped. "Why, I'd be the happiest man alive." The fairy moved a gold ring from her finger. "Here, put this ring on your finger and we will be married." The ring shimmered in the sunlight. It was radiant. The shepherd put the ring on his finger. Suddenly, his shepherd's mouth turned into a beautiful suit fit for a prince. Instead of sheep, a carriage drawn by 6 winged horses stood before him on the hillside. The wind stopped blowing. Even the birds stopped flying to watch. It was as though the shepherd and the fairy were the only people on earth. "Now we are ready," said the fairy. "Climb into the carriage. We must return to my home. We have a long way to travel." The shepherd hesitated. "I must say goodbye to my mother first," he said. "She would be very worried if she didn't know where I had gone." "All right," said the fairy. "I'll leave the carriage with you and go on ahead. But please come to me before 3 days are up. The horses will take you safely to my palace." Then she kissed the shepherd and vanished. He stood there for a moment, amazed by his clothing. He could still feel the touch of her lips on his cheek. Finally, the shepherd climbed into the carriage and drove out toward the village where his mother lived. The shepherd had not traveled far when he met the queen of country. She was out for a ride with her assistant. He took one look at the handsome young man in the carriage and fell in love with him. "Hello, Prince," the queen called, reining in her horse. "I have been looking everywhere for someone like you. Since my husband died, this country has been ruined. Will you marry me and be my king?" She was not coy at all. She expected him to say yes and be grateful for her offer. After all, she was the queen. The shepherd was a practical man. It did not take him long to make up his mind. He decided that he would rather be king of his own country than live with a beautiful fairy a long way away. So he bowed very low. Yes, ma'am, I will be honored to be the king. The moment he said the word, his fine clothes vanished and his carriage disappeared as well. He stood there in his old threadbare smock, surrounded by sheep. The assistant laughed at his clothes and his sheep. The queen could hardly believe her eyes. And who is this? She asked scornfully. She was embarrassed to think that she had asked such a humble man to be her husband. She ordered her assistant to chase him and his sheep away. Then she rode off with her nose in the air. The shepherd was ashamed, and he was out of breath. When he turned round about his sheep, he could not find them anywhere. They had all run away. He sat down on the ground and looked at his old clothes. What have I done? He asked himself. I am such a fool. From that day forward, he traveled widely, flying his fruit and begging for crusts of bread. He never found his sheep. He searched everywhere for the beautiful fairy, but he never found her again either. He never again felt any of the happiness he knew before that day. What will happen if the fairy leaves her cave for longer than 3 days? A, she won't be able to do magic. B, she would not be able to get back to the cave. C, she'll be lonely. D, over the above. I choose D. I choose I. Why doesn't the shepherd go with the fairy right away? He thinks his ship will miss him. B, he wants to change his clothes. C, the carriages can only carry one person at a time. D, he wants to say goodbye to his mother. I choose D. What the following is not an example of an eternal event in the story. I, the fairy, make the shepherd clothes turn into a beautiful suit. B, the shepherd thinks for a moment. C, the queen asked the shepherd to marry him and became the king. D, the shepherd finds clothes vanish and he is chased away. I should say, if you are content, you are wealthy. Be practical. C, simple. D, satisfied. I should say, why does the fairy fall in love with the shepherd? A, he is very handsome. B, he seems to enjoy his life. C, he seemed very wise. D, he looked very kind. I should be. Which of the following was not one of the items changed by the fairy magic ring? A, the shepherd's mouth. B, the shepherd's sheep. C, the shepherd's flute. D, none of the above. I should D. What is the other main purpose for writing the story? A, to entertain. B, to inform. C, to persuade. D, all the above. And D. Why does the shepherd decide to marry the queen instead of the fairy? A, he would rather be king of his own country. B, he thinks the queen is more beautiful. C, he wants to be able to have his mother live with them. D, he doesn't think he can get to the fairies in 3 days. And A, what happened when the shepherd said he will marry the queen? A, the fairy get angry. B, the shepherd became rich. C, the fairy magic come undone. D, the queen and the shepherd are happy. And A, how do you think the shepherd feel at the end of the story? A, foolish. B, ashamed. C, unhappy. D, all the above. I see.
We need a little more practice until we pass.
I got 5 or 10 correct. The end. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.